Hey guys, my name is Loveless and we are back with a high-pitched cry for help. So the plan is to actually get this series done as soon as possible. One of you guys had told me that someone else had actually finished it, but I started the series first, so I'm gonna just complete it as soon as possible. Cause also that's more views for the author, so I'm gonna just do it anyway. But other than that, let's get straight into it. And they went home. Before leaving the hospital, the couple went to explain to the kid that he could no longer stay there and that he was going to stay with them until he can get back on his feet. However, the doctor that was still in the room with him looked confused at the way Yamada signed away at the kid. She took the other hero to the side and whispered, "I'm sorry, Eraserhead, but are you sure that the kid understands that? It may be better if you explain the situation to him." "That won't be necessary. Izuku knows sign language. We believe he could have been taught even as a baby." And he had to say, the name of the kid had a nice ring to it. Did something pop up out of his physical exam? On his physicals? No, not at all. Are you under the impression that he was born deaf? He didn't respond, just nodded. There wasn't any real reason to believe he wasn't. After all, he didn't respond to his name at all. But again, there was the possibility of him just not being able to communicate and learn for that reason. He wasn't born deaf or mute. We usually check for that thing when we see a muzzle, but it's not the case. I think I gave you all his records, but I'll check for that. After that, he was given some extra papers of medical exams he had at another hospital, a quirk specialist hospital. The first conclusion Aizawa had was that then the muzzle was quirk related, and there had to be something else for what he knew sign language. But he was even more bewildered at the diagnosis he had at age 4, quirkless. Attached to it was an x-ray of his foot, showing the classic structure of a quirkless person's feet. What the hell's going on here? He can clearly remember the instance in the alleyway when he found him. There was no physical evidence of a quirk, but the hero could bet on his hero license that the kid had one and he erased it in the alleyway. He promised to talk to Hizashi about what really happened with Izuku, but at another time. The way that the kid was looking at the loud hero was enough to even The way the kid was looking at the loud hero was enough to not even be able to be mad at him for not talking about bringing him home before. He really needed a safe and calm space to stay at. And truth be told, if the quirkless status was in his record, it was inevitable going to have a hard time in the foster system. The blonde had excused himself, saying that the medical bill would be footed by his insurance and he would just need a place to get his health back. Aizawa could have thought it could have been two things. One, how Aizawa got attached to him. He saw the kid in a muzzle and he wanted to give him help that he wasn't given. He hoped it was the first one. They had the space and the money to help the kid, and they barely talked about kids. This would be a nice test to see if they would be up for adopting in the future. He just didn't want to admit that the idea of fostering this specific child made his heart tingle. The feeling only grew a little at the sight of the kid slyly grabbing the blonde's hand to get off the stretcher. The way home was silent, and when they got there, the kid was noticeably anxious, his hands pulled on his hair ever so slightly. Making the first step, Aizawa entered first, turning on all the lights, giving the kid a reassuring smile for him to walk in at his own time. "How does dinner sound, little listener?" he added, singing and speaking at the same time, something he usually did at home. The kid waited a minute or so, still taking a view of the place. Then turning to Aizawa, who he had obviously been more comfortable with, he didn't seem to find whatever he was looking for, because he looked again at the blonde, and then at shoes. Aizawa took the opportunity as to try something. "Even if you're not hungry, you should still eat something before bed, kiddo." His husband opened his mouth to say something, but stopped when he saw the kid tear his eyes away from the floor to look at Aizawa. Then he nodded slowly. So it was true. He wasn't deaf. Mike put two and two together and looked at his husband as if he grew a third eye. Well, technically, he did tell him Izuku was deaf, but in his defense, he actually thought he was when he told him. Aizawa stayed at the sofa with little Izuku while Mike made dinner. They both knew how to cook, but with the dietary restrictions, the kid had it better to leave it to him, who had much more experience in the kitchen. They settled in one of the two lovebird seats in the living room. He helped the kid up and surrounded him with chunky pillows to help him to be more comfortable due to his ribs. But the kid truly showed no sign of pain. Aizawa hoped that was because of the painkillers and not because of a built-up of pain tolerance. They ate dinner on the coffee table on the futon. Yamada made some simple soup and broth and cooked some vegetables, which would be easy for the kid to digest, and then he added some red meat and noodles, not wanting to make the kid feel like as if he was eating something better. He also put a white rice bowl in the middle of the table to see if the kid would want some. The second they started eating, the kid tried to get up, but Aizawa put a hand on his shoulder to indicate him to sit back down. At least try some. If your stomach is too upset, we can sleep right after 3 bites. Maintaining his voice firm but yet soft. He wanted the kid to know that he was to try new things before refusing them, but no one was going to force him into anything. The kid sat back down, looking confused at his plate, and then both of them. If there's something you don't like, you can always take it out, Mike tried, needing to experience firsthand of the kid responding to sound. I eat now? The kid signed. With adults? The couple looked at each other. Was this kid raised differently, perhaps? It was obvious that the problem wasn't the food itself, but by the way it seemed to be presented or how they decided to go about it. We usually eat together, yes, Aizawa simply stated. Effectively enough, the kid started eating. No one had the heart to say anything, but the kid was making an absolute mess on the table and the floor. Soup was going into the rice, his clothes. Hell, even the cat seemed to have a stain. He was doing his best, but he didn't want any help, and his hands were heavily shaking by the way he used a spoon, proved not to be efficient. There would be time later to teach him that. He wasn't able to finish the whole soup, and good God did he try. The poor kid was absolutely stuffed with only half a bowl and no rice. Aizawa was warned that the kid would only be able to stomach a little, as he was used to eating little to nothing. But that didn't help the feeling that he was letting him starve through the night. Azashi had absolute hearts in his eyes. When he cleaned Izuku's mouth with a napkin, the kid just let him do whatever, kind of trying to hide the fact that he was also cleaning the floor with his t-shirt when he was taking the dishes to the kitchen. They helped him take a bath, but at that point the food had settled in and he was half asleep. So much that he let them wash out his hair as far as possible. It would take a lot of work to get all the matting out. For now, they were happy enough to not have him sticking to the whole house. They would try again tomorrow with the kid a little more conscious. Funny enough, he was completely asleep by the time they slowly pat him down on the softest towels they had, making sure not to hit any delicate spots or sensitive areas. Yamada almost started crying at the sight of the kid's back, a huge burn scar going from shoulder to shoulder. It was healed, but it was horrible to see in a kid nonetheless. Sadly, because of the emergency situation, they didn't have a room ready for the kid, and they didn't want to put any type of pressure by making him sleep with them. So they all settled in sleeping in the living room with lots of blankets and pillows. And tomorrow they would have time to put a room together. At the end of the night, early morning really, the couple made the smallest nest of blankets and pillows for an already unconscious kid to rest in. Aizawa thought that the frown in his sleep made him look a lot older, and Yamada thought that it didn't really pair up well with the baby fat that he still had in his cheeks. But even with a heavy heart, they were able to fall asleep too, in comfort knowing that the kid was in a good place to stay in, and people that would do anything to care for him. Aww, that's so cute. I love it. That's so cute. Okay, also, I don't know what's with this, but like these later chapters, man, the amount of errors and like just word errors. I had to like do some tweaking just to make it sound like English. So if you're reading along, I do apologize. I had to like skip over some words and add some words because it was just not gonna sound right. But other than that, I'll get to the next part as soon as possible, and you know what to do. Bye.